Up next on The Reveal.
He said, I shot him deader than He said, I shot that boy deader than
A jury convicts a man guilty of murder.
When you heard guilty, what was your reaction?
I was like, oh God, yes. We got it.
But then a judge issues a surprising ruling.
I mean, I've never had it happen to me in 44 years trying criminal cases.
And if you love something like that so much, you'll do just about anything.
What this family decided to do was run, defying a judge's order to turn over the kids to the state of Georgia.
It was a bad 1, 2, 3 years of my life.
From our Midtown studios in Atlanta, The Reveal begins now with our multi-Emmy and National Murrow Award-winning team of investigators.
Welcome to The Reveal, an investigative show making an impact. I'm Faith ABUBEY.
And I'm Brendan Keefe. The Georgia Supreme Court will soon decide whether a man convicted of murder will get a new trial. A jury originally found him guilty last year, but the trial judge reversed their verdict, declaring himself the 13th juror. The Reveal uncovered it's an extraordinary power given to Georgia judges some believe is eroding the public's trust in the criminal justice system.
Below the canopy of trees in Barrow County, Georgia, Sheriff Judd Smith takes us on a tour of small-town America.
This is what we call the country, out where we're at.
It's not the miles of farmland we're after, it's an old murder scene still fresh on his mind.
As a matter of fact, it happened right here.
A two-street intersection where two men once crossed paths. One shot dead, the other holding the gun.
He said, I shot him deader than He said, I shot that boy deader than
That boy was 34-year-old Brandon Lay.
Just kind, loving, giving.
Teddy Taylor was Brandon's girlfriend.
From the day I met him, we never left each other's side. It was just that click.
All that changed on October 17th, 2015, when the couple decided to go to this abandoned trailer in the woods at night. It's a home Brandon grew up in but didn't own. Teddy says Brandon went to get old belongings he believed was still his.
And I said, Brandon, something's not right. I feel like somebody's watching me. And he goes, well, babe, just go get in the truck.
Someone was watching 3 deer hunters nearby.
Brandon come running out of the house. He said, tell him we're not stealing.
The hunters don't believe them and threaten to call the police on behalf of the trailer's owner. Bullets then start to fly.
Oh my God, it was awful. I could feel one go. It like part my hair.
Hunters claim they started shooting after Teddy and Brandon got inside this U-Haul, ramming their truck to get away.
And he's like, get down, get in the floorboard. So I get in the floorboard. I'm going, oh my God, dear Jesus, help us. And he's like, I'm gonna get us out of this.
Kitchen utensils they took fall out of the back of their truck, littering the intersection of Old Hog Mountain and Charlie Hall Road, about a mile away. The owner of the abandoned trailer arrived soon after. He's Paul Hamilton, and he tells deputies he's prepared to take the law into his own hands.
He told us, if I find him before you, you're going to have to call the coroner. And as your viewers may know, when you call the coroner, someone's deceased.
A few hours later, Brandon and Teddy returned to the same intersection in this brown truck to pick up lost items from the road. And so does Paul in his white Lexus with a gun in his hand.
And Brenda's going, crank it. If you don't, he's gonna kill us.
Paul walks up to the truck and puts his pistol through the driver's side window.
Paul Hamilton pulls back. Brandon pushes me back, and he shot him in the temple. And he, as soon as he did it, he goes, I shot that mother dead or
Do you think he saved your life?
I know he did.
Deputies take Paul into custody and soon discover Brandon wasn't just some unknown alleged home burglar. They know each other well.
Paul was Brandon's stepfather, his uncle actually, but he adopted Brandon when he was 6 months old. He knew Brandon.
When we were interviewing about this, he says, this is going to delay me going out of town. He had a cruise to go to, so it was one of those things.
This is a picture posted by Paul's girlfriend on Facebook 8 days after shooting his adopted son.
I mean, obviously.
Jeffrey SLIZ is his attorney.
Yeah, he went on a cruise after the shooting that he'd paid for months and months and months before that.
Was he remorseful at all? Do you see how that can look?
Of course.
Nearly 3 years later, Paul stands trial for Brandon's murder. During the trial, SLIZ tells the jury his client went to the intersection to retrieve his belongings and confront the people he was told burglarized his trailer. Why not wait for the police?
He was going to wait for the police. He told them to wait for the police. He expected them to come, but these people were going to flee. And he didn't want them to escape.
Why walk up to the truck with a gun?
Because he's concerned for his physical safety.
In my opinion, I don't think Paul Hamilton was in any danger, imminent danger of anything. Paul Hamilton had the gun. Paul Hamilton pulled the trigger. And Brandon Lay died. And that's how the jury saw it.
In my mind, that was the deciding thing.
Steve Charters was one of those jurors.
All he had to do was step away. Why did he keep, fighting with him and stick the gun in the vehicle to begin with? There was no threat. The threat came from him.
It took Charters and the rest of the jury just 3 hours to reach a verdict. When you heard guilty, what was your reaction?
I was like, oh God, yes. We got it.
20 days later, Paul returned to the courthouse for Chief Superior Court Judge David Moats to hand down Paul's prison sentence.
It was over. We were just there, putting the candles on the cake. The party was over,
Judge Moats sentences Paul to life behind bars. But then something strange happens.
I started to say something to him. I don't remember what I was going to say. Well, yes, sir. We understand that. I don't know what I was going to say. He says, but I'm not done.
Next on The Reveal.
Complete, utter disbelief. Never seen it, never heard of it.
A judge shocks the courtroom with a surprise move.
This was his last case. He goes out with a bolt.
Every day, Teddy Taylor reflects on two men who changed her life forever. One who stole her heart.
There was nothing he wouldn't do for me or anybody else.
And the other she fears could kill her.
Until he's behind bars, I'm gonna remain scared.
Teddy is talking about Paul Hamilton, who shot and killed her former boyfriend Brandon Lay in October 2015 at this intersection in Barrow County, Georgia. Investigators say Paul forced a gun inside their truck window and shot Brandon in the head.
I was covered with blood and rain and bone. It was all over me.
This past October, a jury convicted Paul of murder. Chief Superior Court Judge David Moats sentenced him to life in prison. But a short time later, the judge surprises everyone in court. According to court transcripts, the judge announced, "Mr. Hamilton, the court is not done. I believe there were errors that were committed in that trial. Mr. Hamilton, I'm going to grant you a new trial." What was going through your mind?
I'm going, oh my God, he's gonna come get me. And he's gonna walk. He's gonna walk for this.
What Judge Moats did is essentially declare himself the 13th juror, overriding the other 12 jurors' verdict. Barrow County Sheriff Judd Smith.
In disbelief, complete, utter disbelief. Never seen it, never heard of it. The DA's office was taken off guard.
Steve Charters was one of the jurors who convicted Paul.
The judge told us, you, the jury, are the finders of fact. You determine what happened here. And for him to be able to throw that out, to me, it doesn't make sense.
Paul bonds out of jail and remains so today. A week later, Judge Moats retired from the bench.
Anybody that could do that after seeing the evidence, God bless their soul. He'll burn in hell evermore.
But there's another twist in this case.
Here's the other wrinkle to it, which makes this story even more interesting. Mr. Hamilton was an associate magistrate many years ago for Barrow County.
A judge?
A judge, magistrate judge, yes.
Do you think that played a part in the judge reversing the jury's decision?
Absolutely.
Judge Moats declined to be interviewed for this story. So did Paul. But his attorney, Jeffrey SLIZ, says there's zero evidence of bias. He says his client's time on the bench was more than 30 years ago. He believes Judge Moats simply did not trust the evidence or the witnesses and felt obligated to take action.
I could see watching the judge throughout the trial that he did not like this case. He did not like the evidence.
The Barrow County Prosecutor's Office declined to be interviewed for this story too, but they did appeal Judge Moats' ruling.
The state versus Paul Hamilton.
This past May, District Attorney Brad Smith appeared before the Georgia State Supreme Court.
The trial judge purposely surprised the state. It wasn't that he just didn't have to have a hearing. He purposely surprised the state.
The district attorney argued that Judge Moats never offered a clear explanation for granting a new trial. And the only time he was specific, the DA says he got it wrong.
The only thing inconsistency or incredibility says, I remember one witness saying that methamphetamine would not have affected her perception of any of these events.
You know, we have...
That is not, excuse me, Your Honor, this is an important point, that is not in the trial transcript at all. That is imaginary evidence.
It's full of shit.
What do you mean?
He's just wrong.
SLIZ says meth did come up during the trial. Maybe not exactly the way Judge Moats says happened, but investigators did find syringes in Teddy's purse. And Brandon was no saint either. He had a history of felony theft and drug arrests.
So I don't think the judge thought that they were very credible in their recollection of what happened.
I'm not trying to paint the picture that Brandon Lay was a pillar of the community. He had his demons and done stuff, but still at the end of the day, you can't shoot somebody like that.
A former judge given a possible second chance at freedom by a former one-time colleague on the bench. A decision some believe is eroding the public's trust of Georgia's criminal justice system.
Tried by a jury of your peers, and they got it right, and he yanked it out from under them. But nobody wins. Nobody wins in this case. Nobody does. Nobody.
So do we have a better idea as to when the Georgia Supreme Court could make a decision in this case?
It could come any day now, and if history repeats itself, the justices will side with Judge Moats' decision, and Paul Hamilton will get his second chance.
So Andy, has this ever happened before in Georgia?
Well, extremely rare. A judge in Cherokee County declared himself the 13th juror last year in a child molestation case. A jury found the accused guilty, but the judge reversed their decision. That case is also still pending.
Coming up on The Reveal, a Georgia family on the run.
When they beat down the door, there were literally lasers on every one of our heads. My 18-month-old daughter had a laser on her head.
One family's nightmare and why they decided to run.
Welcome back to The Reveal. How far would you go to keep the state from taking your child? One family found themselves on the run, accused of essentially kidnapping their own kids when a judge gave DFACS temporary custody. Here's the family's story of why they say they decided to run and why they believe it was their only option.
That was a good catch. Double pump. Me and my dad always go outside, play football. There you go.
This teenager says he will never take a pass for granted. The chance to spend time not only with his dad, but the rest of his family simply playing a game.
Good job, high five.
I can tell you love your family. Yeah.
Throw it to me? Oh, good job.
But this teen, who we're not showing to protect his privacy, says there are still nights he wakes up fearful the game will end.
I try not to think about it because it was a bad 1, 2, 3 years of my life.
3 years ago, that's when court records say his mom got mixed up with drugs, his dad had a few too many beers, and his parents started to fight about it. A 911 call to de-escalate the situation led to a knock on the door by DFACS. So here you thought you were calling for help.
Mm-hmm.
But it turned out to be the worst phone call ever.
A year later, when DFACS and the judge didn't feel the parents were taking their treatment seriously, Judge Joseph White gave temporary custody of the Hendersons' 3 children to the state. Fearing there was no way to fight the decision, they ran.
If you love something like that so much, you'll do just about anything.
In the eyes of the law, the Hendersons had just interfered with custody, essentially kidnapping their own kids. Did they have any idea what had happened in court that day?
No.
No.
There was an Amber Alert, newspaper headlines, and arrest warrants.
This is the police!
It took several weeks for U.S. Marshals to find them in Louisiana. When they busted down the door in the middle of the night, Martha thought they were all going to die.
When they beat down the door, there were literally lasers on every one of our heads. My 18-month-old daughter had a laser on her head.
But it was that raid in the dark of night that ended up shining a light on how easy our child welfare system can misuse its power.
It was me against you. That's what it was.
That's what he said, too.
Literally, because the day the Hendersons' children were removed, they didn't have an attorney. Their representation filed a motion to withdraw just 2 working days before court, and the judge denied the request for a continuance.
You were trying to defend yourself. You have papers in front of you. You're like, it's right here. No, that's wrong. They're wrong. They're lying.
According to the court transcript, there were no witnesses sworn in, no evidence, or chance to cross-examine the statements made by DFACS. By law, the state argued the judge didn't need it. The Georgia Appeals Court seemed just as surprised as the parents.
So they didn't even need a hearing that day.
They don't need a hearing. They don't need notice. The juvenile court has the authority to act in the best interest of the children.
Based upon what, though? As long as the government says it's okay, then by God, it's okay.
Yes, that's what the juvenile court has the authority to do, and your remedy at that point.
In its written ruling, Judge Tripself wrote, "Constitutional rights are commandments, not suggestions." Chief Judge Dillard went on to call the state's justification for removing the children nonsense on stilts.
This is not an issue of significant public concern.
I got to tell you, I'm in the public and I'm concerned.
DFACS records are not public, nor are court proceedings. It was the family that gave us access to their case records, transcripts, and recordings. In them, you can hear the judge's frustration with the parents.
It's not your decision right now. So you need to stop saying what you've done enough of. I'll decide that.
When we look at our child welfare system, it's not just DFACS.
That's one agency. It's a bureaucracy responsible for protecting children. But you're right, DFACS never has the power to take a child out of a home. Period. The court has that power.
But attorney and juvenile court judge pro tem Ashley WILLCOTT says the court needs that power. She says the appeals court ruling clarifies parents have the right to representation. Says judges in child welfare cases also need the authority to move fast.
You may have, for instance, a meth home or a lab explosion, and the children have to be removed because there's no one else.
She's their princess.
The Hendersons argue this was not that situation.
Do you ever feel like you or your brother or sister have ever been abused or neglected?
Oh.
Well, for this family, the court battle resulted in victory. It is clear no one walked away a winner.
I'm with my family back now, you know. Thank the Lord for that. But, you know, I think it's sometimes, what if it didn't go this way?
So, Rebecca, where does the court case stand now?
With that custody order ruled null and void, there were no grounds for the criminal charges, so those were also overturned. But the appeals process takes time, and these decisions came more than a year after the judge had already returned the children to the home. So the parents, they still had to get treatment. They still had to finish their case plan.
And this case has been completely resolved. So why is this family sharing their story now?
They wanted to give people a glimpse at what is happening inside a fairly secretive system and show just how powerful this system is at determining your family's fate. Judges, they're dependent on accurate information, but there is a real fear that these judges aren't actually getting it, and that's really the question now. How do we hold that part of the system in check?
If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
Thanks for watching The Reveal, the nation's only weekly local investigative show.
Join us next week for The Reveal.